back to the Bike Lane. It's good to have you with us, and we've got a big show in stall as we're coming to you once again from Moorside Wheelers. The Giro d'Italia, we take a close look at that. And we've got a new segment. We're going out for a hot lap, and as part of that, what's on your mind? We're going to discuss Strava. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Scott McGrory goes down to the VIS once again for the Target Healthy Living tips and gets some gym exercises for road riders. Plus, John Fane, one of the leading talkback hosts of the country. We talk to him about cyclists versus pedestrians versus motorists and the media, and maybe how we can all get along just a little bit better. And of course, how can we neglect talking about Matt White? Plus, we're joined by Mick Rogers, and we answer the question, where the hell has he been? I'm Matt Keenan, as always. Scott McGrory, we can't get rid of anybody who's a track endurance rider. Wade Wallace, and popular demand, Will Walker is back with us. Will, thanks for rejoining.
Thanks, Matt.
You've just returned from the Battle of the Border, where Hugh and Genesis got the better of the Drapac team. Which is the better team?
Look, I can't say who the better team is. Last week, it was quite obvious in the results who the better team was. Drapac aside, I can actually only say the best things about Hugh and Genesis. Andrew Christie Johnson is a director sportif there, and he's followed the team for the last 8 years. It's even getting close to 10 years, and he gets the best out of the riders.
He's been incredible. He has never been to Europe, and he has sent so many guys. He's got 4 guys that have gone through that team that are now racing World Tour. It's a quality team. It's delivering as much as the AIS.
Yeah, look, he's one of the best things that's happened to Australian cycling. But looking at Drapac, we do deliver at big races, and sometimes you just have to look at the results where it's not quite as good.
You've been a director sportif at Drapac. They announced this week they're going pro-continental next year, so stepping up a level. Technically, that means they could get a wild card for the Tour de France, but we know that's not going to happen. However, good thing or bad thing?
Oh, look, it's always a good thing to see teams evolve and get larger. I'm a little bit puzzled about the motivation as to why they want to go professional continental, and we haven't got all the information yet, so I'll be waiting to hear that from Michael Drapac in a press release perhaps down the track. It's a good thing because they're getting bigger, but I'd like to see them be a bit more competitive in our National Road Series here in Australia.
It looks like we'll see less of the team next year in the National Road Series. Anyway, we're going to get stuck into the show. We're going to start with Matt White. We've still got the Giro to come, plus Mick Rogers and a whole lot more. It's been a major topic of discussion on internet forums. It's been a big discussion within the mainstream media as well. Matt White has finally had his suspension handed down. Backdated, he's already served it. It was 6 months and he ended up serving more time than he actually needed to. But he's back on the market. Is he employable? Will Greenedge reappoint him has been one of the big discussions. Will, you worked at Orica Greenedge before you returned to the bike. Should Orica Greenedge reappoint Matt White purely based around his ability, his performance as a DS?
Well, firstly, I've got to say, I think he's already going to be reappointed. That's going to be a formality in my opinion. He's one of the best at what he does, so there's no decision there. I think cycling needs to now go and say, why aren't we appointing people like Christoph Bassens, who was in Festina? He was the only one that didn't dope there. He had high moral ground initially when nobody else did have.
He was the guy saying no when everybody else said yes.
Exactly, and he was kicked out of cycling. He retired soon after. He had lots of talent. Get somebody like that who didn't need a second chance and to be a new person.
Have we got Australian options?
Yes, we do. We've got Gene Bates. We've got David McPartland. They're both involved with the Australian teams. Get guys involved like that. Give them the leadership, and they'll do great jobs. And they haven't made mistakes.
Do you guys think that Greenedge would have the balls to actually hire someone that hasn't ridden at that top level at the Tour de France, like Gene Bates?
Well, okay, I think I'd like to see someone like Gene Bates. I agree with Will. I think he's a class act. But look, they already have signed somebody that, and he's working as a director sportif, that hasn't ridden the Tour de France. He raced as a road rider. It's Lorenzo Lepage. He was their main director sportif through all of the classics.
He's doing a great job.
He's doing a good job. He's very likeable, and I think they enjoy having him in the team. But he's never ridden the Tour de France.
But Wade's right though. It's a pertinent question. Will they have the courage to appoint somebody that hasn't ridden the Tour de France to one of the key roles? And I think Gene Bates, David McPartland, they're key candidates for that, and they're working within the Australian system. David with the Orica Greenedge women's team, and Gene Bates at the Tasmanian Institute of Sport now. But what about from the public perception? You have got your finger on the pulse of the public as much as anybody else. Do you think he'll be welcomed back, Matt White, by the general public?
I think people have a short memory. As long as he gets in front of the camera, he's very likable on all the backstage pass videos, and he has a great personality. And as long as he's sort of in there and he did come off pretty strong in that interview on SBS the other day.
He was on the front foot.
Yeah, and I think if he comes across likeable, if they win races, people will forget.
I agree with you in terms of I think he's virtually got his job back already. This is a PR offensive. He's done Rupert Guinness already. He's been on SBS. He's trying to get that momentum that when the announcement is made, he's already accepted. I think the bigger issue for Green Edge to deal with, because Matt White's already been dealt with now, because he's had his suspension, he's done his time, he's confessed, is Neil Stevens. I think Matt White will be reappointed, and time will tell whether it's a good decision or not. Next up, we're going to talk about some racing as we turn our attention to the Giro d'Italia. It's Giro d'Italia time, and thanks to Champion System, we're going to be bringing you our view of the race right throughout the month. And we've got Will, who's ridden the race before, so we're going to start with you with the question about the youngest guy in the race, Luke Durbridge. He's 22 years of age, he's the youngest by about 15 days. What's it like at the end of the first week?
Well, there's two ways we can look at this. Being the youngest is hard. You don't have the experience and you don't have the legs that just keep backing up day after day. But then Luke Durbridge he's like a phenomenal talent. So it's not the same as me when I was 20 and I did the Vuelta, and 21 when I did the Giro, and I was really about dead after 10 days. Whereas Luke Durbridge, I mean, he's just a class above. So he's probably doing all right.
All right, we'll disagree with part of that. You're an enormous talent as well, and there's results to prove that. But Luke Durbridge, I think he's there for experience.
Oh, look, absolutely. And we saw him last year win some of the smaller tours and the time trials in those tours to get the overall victories. But I think one of the other reasons that Orica Green Edge put him in for this Giro is because of the team time trial on stage 2. They didn't do a very good result in the end as a team, but I think the horsepower that he puts into that team is one of the reasons that they put him in.
And he could be important in the lead-out, which brings me to Matt Goss and Lee Howard. Magnus Backstead put the tweet out there to go with Lee Howard instead of Matt Goss. So who would you go with, Wade?
I wouldn't write off Gossi just yet. I mean, Lee Howard and Brent Lancaster did an awesome lead-up for him in stage 1. But as Mark Renshaw showed, it's a lot harder to go on your own and be a sprinter than it is to be a lead-up man. So I don't know if he's ready yet.
You've coached Lee Howard. How's his power output going?
It's this year, it's the best it's ever been. And leading into the Giro, which he didn't know he was going to be riding the Giro, so it's a bit of a random call-up because Michael Matthews was sick. But his figures are fantastic at the moment, so he is getting faster. Gossi at the moment, I think, still has that will to win a bit more than what maybe Lee does, but I reckon there'll be a change in the hierarchy.
Will? Goss or Howard?
Cavendish. Every day.
Can either of them beat Cavendish?
Look,
with the right circumstances?
Howard needs time, and Gossi needs to put more effort in.
Put more effort in?
He's not the rider he was 2
lazy?
years ago. And,
is he lazy?
I think Green Edge needs to just really get stuck into him, and he can win lots of races. He can climb. Cavendish can't climb. So, yeah, he can do more than Cavendish.
He's very good at PlayStation from what I understand.
Yeah. And Will Walker, you've just accused him of being lazy.
Not lazy. I just think he could work harder.
Yeah, okay. So the final one to take out of it, Mark Cavendish, after winning the first stage, took his daughter on the podium. How does that sit with us all? You don't see it in many other sports. Formula One, you don't see it. I haven't seen it in tennis. Pat Cash ran into the stand and hugged Dad, but children on the podium.
Look, I probably see this from a different perspective because
you've been on a podium.
Because I have been.
And we haven't been on a podium.
But thinking about Sydney Olympics, losing my son before that and the lead up to it and everything. So I like it when I see them do it, but not too often. I think the first stage, Cav wins it. He goes into the pink jersey, fantastic. Yep, love to share it because he has that love for his children, as we all do, as when we're parents. But perhaps not too often.
So looking forward to hearing your comments about the Giro so far, and Will Walker has posed the question, is Matt Goss lazy? Could he be doing a little bit more? But we've also got the Champion System Weekend Warrior to contend with, and Dale Lowe is the winner of the prize this week as he's nominated Cameron Worth after his first big attack, and he was the first guy in the breakaway. But when he was in the breakaway, they were coming to the KOM, and the Frenchman Bonafont attacked to try and get that jersey, and then once he was caught again, the Tasmanian Cameron went up to him, remonstrated with him, wasn't too happy with the etiquette, and then he attacked himself. What's the etiquette of the breakaway?
These days, I think it's more about if it works for you, there is no etiquette.
Wade, is he just a hard man?
I don't know. I mean, it's fun watching someone like Thomas Voeckler attack during a breakaway, but it also disrupts that harmony of the breakaway. If they're going to stay away, you kind of got to play by the rules until a few hundred meters left to go or a couple kilometers.
I can feel the direction that you're heading.
Look, I think throw the etiquette out the window. You've got to do what gets you over the line or gets you popular on TV. And, when you go into a breakaway of 7 guys, there's going to be some guys that aren't as smart as some of the others. So you've already taken that into account with the possibility of the breakaway staying away.
And I think no etiquette would be better for the perception of the sport, because people watching at home that don't follow the sport, they can't understand why someone would let another person win the stage if that means that I get the jersey. To throw the etiquette away and all just race for the best possible result, and the sport will be in a better position with public perception.
I think the only time where we need to stick with some etiquette is when, in terms of safety. Coming into feed zones and different sprints at the end, you need to look after each other, because they're all being paid, they're all professionals, and they want to race the next week. They don't want to be in hospital with a broken collarbone. So that's the only time when you really need to stick to it.
Fair enough. So Dale Lowe, you get the Champion System jersey, the Weekend Warrior. Watch out for next weekend for the Saturday stage and the Sunday stage, and look for the person that doesn't win the stage, doesn't take the jersey, but represented those of us who just ride on the weekend and we're the Weekend Warriors. Next up, we're going to talk to one of Australia's leading talkback hosts, John Fane. Cyclists always make for great fodder when it comes to talkback radio. And John Fane is one of the leading hosts in the country. He hosts the ABC program in the mornings here in Melbourne. So we went to talk to him about the relationship between cyclists, motorists and the media. John, thanks for joining us.
My absolute pleasure.
What is it about cyclists that lights the switchboard up? It seems to get as much talkback as immigration or tax hikes.
Oh, much more than those things. Cycling and the way our society, our community is adapting and changing and trying to accommodate some of these new patterns of commuting, of recreation, all this, it's in your face. It's there every day. It's such a part of what Melbourne now is coming to grips with. So those other things that you mentioned, they're big, but they're not there right this minute now annoying me. It's not like someone didn't cut me off on my way to work this morning to talk about taxation.
To change the perception for cyclists, one of them is they slow the traffic down, which creates a tension. How about the day after ride to work day? All those people who rode to work stick their bike on the top of the car and drive to work. That might change the perception.
Well, I'm not worried about that perception, because I think it's wrong. What I think is going on is that there's a massive shift, in particular older people, by older I mean people middle-aged in particular blokes, are seeing that, I'm spending 20 minutes, half an hour getting to work anyway. I'm sitting in a car and then I go to the gym. Well, hey, I can get on the bike, I can get my exercise and my commute done all at once. There's a shower at work once a week. I'll take in on Sunday morning. I'm going in anyway to the office for a lot of people. I'll go in for a couple of hours. I'll take all my shirts in when I go in, and then I'll have a shower when I get to work every day. And I'll enjoy the ride to work and I'll enjoy the ride home. But you're in work mode. I reckon a lot of those commuters, they're already thinking about work while they're racing in the morning, and they are racing. They're giving themselves. I'm seeing what my personal best is on the way to work today. What's my PB and how fast and all this sort of stuff. It's not good. It's not good. I think they should treat it more like a European style commute, which is where you move with the traffic, you move in a wave, and you're not trying to barge your way through to the front at the lights and get in before the motorbike or the tram or whatever it might be. So there's a mindset shift to come there.
Any chance we can get you in Lycra?
No way. Some things are not worth pursuing. But, I understand the whole Lycra thing totally. There are people, it's efficient, it's easy and all the rest of it too. But I don't get my kicks out of going for a ride to Frankston on a Sunday morning before, breakfast or anything. Totally, people are welcome to.
Yours are hockey.
Yeah, well, hockey, and I play with old cars and do all those sorts of things. That's what I do for my recreation. I understand the need for it, and I understand, cycling's become the new golf. Guys do it together and then they go out for coffee, and it's bonding, and that's really important. That's not to be laughed at, it's not to be sneered at. It's a really good thing. It's healthy, it's environmentally sustainable. The gadgetry is really good. It's got guys playing with gears and brakes when they otherwise wouldn't normally touch anything. Everything about it is good. I don't sneer at it. But at the same time, there's nothing superior about it either.
Well, from a man who's seen it from both sides of the fence, says somebody who's ridden regularly, some sensible words from John Fane. Next up, we deal with what's on your mind. This is one of our favourite segments where we deal with what's on your mind. And one of the topics that has kept coming up has been Strava. So this week it is Strava, whether we like it or whether we don't like it. Dwayne Fox was the first one to put it on the line. So Wayne, give us your view on Strava. Good thing, bad thing, indifferent?
I was on Strava right from when it started, and it was kind of hard to figure out at the time, but I used it, I liked it, and I've kind of gone through the journey of seeing where I can go with cycling, and it's not very far.
Is it now like MySpace?
Yeah, well, no. I mean, people are still discovering it and loving it. And there's nothing I hate more than getting that email in my inbox and it telling me someone broke my KOM because I might not even been trying.
Have you used it?
Well, I haven't actually used it, but I have a segment on Strava up in Bendigo. It's called McGrory Dash. And we really, as a group, we participate. You know, as I say, I'm not on it, but there's always someone in our bunch that is using Strava. So we work together as a group to try and increase his average speed.
What's the view amongst the pro peloton, Will?
Well, look, I'm not really part of the pro peloton now, so I can't tell you, but I'm anti-Strava and I'm anti-Twitter, so that's just me. I'm still anti-iPhone, wouldn't know how to use one, so...
Well, I'm somebody who, since I stopped racing, I've taken the computer off, haven't worn a heart rate monitor, and I don't need Strava for other people to tell me how slow I am.
Look, I am a fan. As I say, I don't have it on I haven't got a computer on my bike, same with you, but I really do like anything that gets people riding and gets people talking about it. And as I say, our bunch in Bendigo, we go training, we do our own thing, but then at the back of our minds, it's about, let's get this Strava record, let's go for it this time.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a split decision. Therefore, to put a little bit more skin on the game, our next segment, first up, we're having a hot lap, and we're creating a bike lane Strava segment where you'll be able to come and challenge the guests that we have on the show. So we're going to head to that now. Well, this is the first time that we've rolled out the hot lap, and we've gone with Tiffany Cherry to get us started. If you watch Fox and you watch the Olympic coverage, you will have seen her. She's also involved in the netball. She was an elite runner over the 400-metre hurdles, a pretty good triathlete as well, so she's been the first to put it on the line. Let's head out to the Yarra Boulevard and see how fast she is. Tiffany, from hosting the Olympic Games for Fox's coverage, you're now in the hot seat. How do you feel about doing the lap?
Well, isn't it every sports journalist wanted to be an Olympian? So this is my opportunity. Look, it's exciting. I actually just got a pang of nerves that I haven't had that for quite a while. That comes with the competition, so it certainly woke me up this morning.
How'd you get on the bike to start with?
I've been riding since I got a bike. Actually, I learned to ride on Easter Sunday when I was 8 years old.
You've had a look at the course?
Yeah.
What do you expect from it?
It's fast, and there's obviously the tight corner, but you know I like that. I like to try and sort of hug the corners and see how much I've got coming up here. But all the excuses come from here now, don't they? I have not been on the bike, and we'll see how much I've got in the tank.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, allez! That might have been a slight false start. We might have to bring her back for a second one. No, we'll allow her to go. So Tiffany Cherry's on her way from hosting the Olympic Games for Fox. She's now doing the job for the bike lane, and she's setting our first hot lap. Wade, come and join us. You've done the course, you cheated. You came here on Saturday to do a few laps as well, just to get a feel for it.
Yeah, I did.
What do you expect from him?
Just look at how fast she clipped in. Actually, I was very surprised. So, just by that form right off the bat, I think she's going to do about 1:40.
She's halfway through then, a little bit under halfway through now. She's been going for 50 seconds.
Yeah.
McGrory is down on the bottom corner, and he's going to be giving the expert tips. He's also one of the coaches at the VIS, so if she doesn't do a good time, it's Scott's fault anyway. He's inside already. Wade Wallace did 1:30 seconds on the weekend. Tiff Cherry is just outside the 1:30.
I can't feel, I think my heart's about to explode.
Well, now you know what it's
great.
like. Now you know what it's like being all those athletes that you interview post-event.
Yeah, I know, totally. And you're like, well, who do you feel? I feel tired. No, it was good. This was fun. I think I did slightly cheat, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, the end of trois. And come around the corner, I went too wide. But I was thinking to Scott, he's like, hug the corner, and I'm trying to pull the bike in. I'd rather stay on the side. And then I started getting lactic down where the headwind hits you, and I'm like, oh, shit.
Oh, is it a headwind on the other
I'm
side?
firing up already down here. And then I took the corner, and I couldn't figure out, I was in too high a gear. So then I sort of thought, oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how long this hill is. And then I recovered, so I went down a gear. I went harder.
You went harder.
I can't figure it out.
Well, the good thing is that if we had a yellow
No
jersey,
idea.
you'd get it.
You
Really?
can have mine.
Yeah, that's because I'm first
Yeah.
came off the rank. Thanks very much.
But life's
It
all
was so
about
much
time.
fun. It was awesome.
So Tiffany Cherry, she has set the benchmark at 1:31.4. At some point, I'm going to get you two out there.
Why us?
It's because we're going to have a Strava off. He's anti-Strava, you're pro-Strava, you don't care.
I'm out.
You're out. We're also going to bring Shane Kelly into play. We're going to have Danny Frawley on the show in a couple of weeks as well. So there's a lot to look forward to with the hot lap. You should get out there as well and see whether you can better the time. The Target Healthy Living Tips, where we give you a few pointers as to how you can improve your riding. We've even had milkshakes on the agenda. But this week, Scott McGrory heads down to the VIS to get some gym tips for road riders.
Well, we're down here at the Victorian Institute of Sport Gymnasium with Michael Crooks because we want to talk about gym training specific for road riders. They're all very skinny little guys, but most of the guys, especially the Victorians that are involved with the VIS, come in the pre-season or the off-season and do gym training. Why do road cyclists, the top ones, do gym training, and what sort of exercises do they do?
Well, just the nature of the racing these days, especially the classics, the short punchy climbs are requiring more and more top-end power output, and that needs to be reflected in the training we do. And traditionally on the bike, you know, we use a lot of SE efforts, etc., to try and develop that. But there's still peak power production that we can work on in the gym environment. So with our cyclists here, we spend a lot of time in the off-season once we have them nice and stable on the bike, trying to improve that top end of that profile. They're trying to elicit that real punchy attack.
What about the compromise of you're not trying to build muscle mass because you don't want them to get heavier on the bike either, do you?
Well, the reality is the volume of training that most roadies do, we're not going to really put on that much weight. And if the weight we do put on is offset by an increased power production, it's weight worth carrying. So if we consider power to weight ratio rather than where our body weight is just at, most of the time it doesn't make that much of a difference.
So as long as the extra weight goes onto the engine room, then that's okay.
And as long as it's productive, yeah.
What type of exercises would someone like a Simon Gerrans or a Cadell Evans do in here at the VIS?
Yeah, so Simon, you know, we've spent about 3 years now really trying to work on his top end profile here in the gym. We go quite heavy with things like deadlift, some single leg press, where we're really trying to reach the highest possible peak power he can attain before the National Road Championships at the start of the year.
What about during the season? So you do all that pre-season. Does that effect wear off as the season goes on? Is there something they can do to maintain it through the year?
It does, and you do need to train it. And the real challenge for the professional guys is trying to get that workload in on the road. We set some travel programs, so things the guys can do in their hotel rooms, such as single leg squats, etc. But the most important thing is to be able to plan some kind of preparation during the middle of the year where they can dabble back into the gym when they have a break. So in Simon's case, coming off the Spring Classics, he'll have about 6 weeks before he really cranks up again. He'll get back into the gym and work on that power profile again.
Well, there you go. Simon Gerrans, Cadell Evans is another one. It's not just about riding the bike, it's also energy and power that's been developed in the gym.
So a few pointers for road riders down at the gym. You obviously did a fair bit of gym with the track that you were racing, I assume.
Yeah, I did. Early on, I did a lot of that. And then when I got into the road, because I actually had a little bit of extra muscle mass that I didn't do any gym for a long time, just to try and really get rid of all of that. And I was doing the 6 days during the winter. So that was Madison slings all the time. So I had plenty of upper body strength that I didn't need for the road. So towards the end of my career, I didn't do too much on the gym.
Did you spend much time in the gym?
Look, I hit 80 kilos when I stopped riding, so I don't need to do any anymore. But there's a lot of road riders out there. Heshida looks like one that he needs to do a bit of gym in Amstel Gold. I saw him swaying all over the place. I mean,
He needs core strength.
Get in the gym, do some core exercise, work on that, and make it look a bit better on TV.
Your friend Andy Schleck, he could do with a few bench presses too.
For sure.
Andy Schleck, go to the gym. Maybe Will Walker will welcome you back into his heart. Next up, we answer Ben Rowland's question about Michael Rogers. Well, Michael Rogers last year was a critical part of Bradley Wiggins winning the Tour de France on Team Sky. So Ben Rowland sent us the question, where the hell is Mick Rogers in 2013? So Mick Rogers, where the hell have you been?
Well, I've been in the background a little bit. I'll start from the beginning. At the end of last year, I had a tonsillectomy operation, which is quite a painful ordeal for an adult of over 30. And the operation went relatively well. The only problem is a couple of weeks later, I started having a lot of hemorrhages. I had 2 very, very strong hemorrhages. And I was in hospital for, a good, would have been a good 2 weeks to recuperate that. And really ever since then, I've suffered greatly with anemia.
Maybe you ate too much ice cream when you had the tonsils out.
Oh, I was devouring ice cream, I tell you that. I will say by the end of it, I couldn't stand the sight of ice cream and yogurt, for sure.
Well, what's I guess you mentioned earlier though to us that you suffered from anemia after that. So obviously the start of the season has been a bit of a shocker for you, and unfortunately we can see that in the results as well. They haven't been to the level that we saw while you were riding at Team Sky. But tell us about the differences between Team Sky and what you're seeing now at Team Saxo. Do you really think or believe that you're going to have a team that's strong enough to support Contador at the Tour de France?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, they're 2 very different teams, as you said. Sky is very, very calculated in everything they do. They're certainly leading the way in curving cycling, progressive cycling. I think they've taken a very scientific mode, and that works for them. Saxo's a different team where it's run more like a kind of, let's say a family, really. A lot of emotion, in the team, a lot of kind of general feelings, really. Whereas Sky is actually, very business based. And that's something I think that Saxo is trying to turn around. That realise that they need to change, and those kind of changes take a little bit of time to put into place.
Hey Mick, Wade here. Just tell me a little bit about the leadership differences that you've seen from Wiggins compared to Contador going over to this team.
Well, Brad was very, as I said, with Guy, he's very calculated. He has the ability to kind of switch off and just look at the numbers. Really, he's very, very calculated. Whereas Alberto is very different. He races on emotion. He really, really does. He really, if he can't win, he gets so angry, and really brings it out of himself emotionally. And very similar to Kaz in the fact that, if he fails, and fails for them is not winning it, it's second, it could be third, considered the most riders quite a good result. But those 2 really just act off emotions and bring the best out of themselves on that.
Mick, next stop for you is the Tour of California. You've won there in the past. Hopefully this is the beginning of some positive results for the rest of the season.
Well, yes, I hope so too. As I said, I had a few problems at the start of the year with the health, and I think I've certainly started to turn it around now. I'm starting to feel like I'm getting back to my old self.
Mick, thanks for joining us. Good luck at the Tour of California. And Ben Rowland, that's the answer to the question. We now know where the hell Mick Rogers has been. We've reconvened the board meeting once again. This time around, though, the question we've put to them is the classics or the Grand Tours. Which do you prefer?
What do you rather, the classics or the tours?
You've shifted. Yeah, it's really, this is the first year where all the classics have been sort of televised. So, previously, you try and sort of score a DVD somewhere or,
Yeah.
But having watched the sort of 5 or 6, whatever they're, just the pace of it, the frenetic pace is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it's the sort of thing you watch and you can't get sleep after.
Yeah, I'm with you actually. Classics now.
And that happens on the tour occasion. It happens on the tour maybe 3 or 4 nights, but it's just total madness. So.
Yeah.
And is it part of it the individual personality of each of them? So they've all got their identity.
It's starting to understand that. Yeah.
I think the difference is also with the tours. It's like a chess game.
Exactly.
It's not just what you do today. They've got a long-term plan. Whereas some of the classics, they're just flat out for the day. Some of those cobbles races, and it's just frantic.
Yeah. I think that's why I like tours, because they're all like that.
Well, I like both, but
they're about 5 or 6 races going on at the same time.
Yeah,
you can look at them all.
I like the unfolding saga of the tour.
It's like a soapy.
It is, but it's
I mean, you know, we all hear it's obviously not just the fastest racer. You've got to have luck. You've got to have your team. You've got to have so many components have got to kind of come right over a 3-week period. And I just like to follow it, all the intricacies of it through the whole.
And I think that kind of madness, like, you know, watching
thing.
Tour of Flanders with those guys, just sort of leading up on the footpath at 50k an hour, bolting through. You don't, you know, there's no need to take the risk in a tour. You don't sort of do that. But
You
that
don't
kind
want
of
to, but you watch. If
sort of
you
madness
really,
just don't.
if you think about that, think into the first stage on Saturday. It will be exactly like that.
The first stage of this year's
But
Giro.
we don't quite see it that way because somehow we're watching a Grand Tour. But it'll be just as mad as a.
The first stage will be.
Especially this year.
Yeah.
Well, it was a split decision at the board meeting between the Classics and the Grand Tours. What about you guys? Which do you prefer? Why don't we start with you as riding them?
Riding them, you know, the Classics are 1 day, so it's a whole lot less pain than a Grand Tour that's 3 weeks long, and there's more action. I think they're better races.
Which do you prefer to watch?
The thing I love about the Grand Tours is the emotional ups and downs. You get so into it for 3 weeks, you're sleep deprived, you feel like you came out the other end, like you rode a Grand Tour and you got a hangover afterwards. That's what I love about them, but the Classics is this instant gratification that I do love as well, but I'm for Grand Tours.
Scotty?
My first recollection of European cycling was more about the Classics. So I think I've got a little bit more romance towards the Classics than the Grand Tours, but hey, I'm a fan of cycling, so I'll watch everything.
Yeah, I'm a fan of cycling, so it's Eve of Milan-San Remo and the Classics are my favourite. The Eve of the Giro and the Grand Tours are my favourite. From a commentary perspective, the Grand Tours are better because if you have a bad day, you know you can go out the next day and improve, whereas at the Classics, you lose sleep for a week.
Well, and
so
you
the Grand Tours, you lose sleep for one night.
Just like riding them.
Yeah.
But you get paid for 3 weeks rather than just 1 day.
I love the Grand Tours. Which do you prefer, the Grand Tours or the Classics? That's it for this week's show, Will. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thanks, Matt.
We'll try and get you back next week because, you know, we want to get you off that fence eventually and actually voice an opinion. Looking forward to seeing more from Will Walker and looking forward to seeing your comments and reading your comments as well. Thanks for joining us. Until next week, bye for now.